cast members to the rescue! I love these stories from viewers and got a couple of my own to add too. I love the stories that so many of my viewers have sent me. The opportunity to be able to share their memories as well as how it relates to what I experienced working at the parks is just a really cool thing. So here's 4 more stories from viewers, as well as my takes on how they related to what I experienced and what I did when I was working at Disney and Silver Dollar City and Busch Gardens. The first one is from Jonah Snyder, and he writes, back in June of 2012, during our second trip to Walt Disney World, we were at Animal Kingdom and we were heading to watch Festival of the Lion King. The parade had just passed by and they were letting the people onto the bridge. Well, somehow I got swept into the crowd and couldn't find my parents anymore. I first checked to see if they were nearby, a trick my dad taught me when I would get lost at local stores. But when I couldn't find them, I shouted, "I'm lost!" Luckily, I had learned what to do in an event like this at school. I noticed a cast member directing traffic on a bridge and told him I was lost. He told me, "I can't do much to help you, but I do know somebody who can," and walked me to a gift shop and explained to the lady there that I had lost my parents. She took me to the Lost and Found Center and explained to me that it wasn't me who was lost, but my parents. While I sat there in the little room crying and understandably scared, within a couple minutes my mom came in and I gave her a big hug. I walked out and rejoined the group and got to watch Festival of the Lion King with them. It's a memory that stuck with me for many years and a memory I'll never forget. I wish I knew who the cast members who helped me were, as they truly exemplified how great and reassuring cast members in general are. They also showed a good example of what happens when you have lost parents or a child that gets separated from them. Generally, when a cast member at any park finds a child like that, the first thing that they'll do is they'll kind of scour the area. At Silver Dollar City, we would have them come down to the train station, and we would walk over to Half Dollar Holler where the carousel was right nearby, and then up maybe to the Christmas shop, and then over to the Flooded Mine, train station, and we would do that loop a couple times. 95% of the time, within doing that loop once, rarely twice, we found the parents. Quick and easy. It was very rare for us to actually have a child that took longer. The same thing at Disney World. We could almost pretty much stay where we were with the child, wait a few minutes, and typically within 5 to 10 minutes, we would find the parents with no problem. Especially if the child was old enough that they could describe them to us. It made it real easy. But every now and then you had one that was a little more trouble. One of the biggest things is to tell kids that if they see a name tag that the person's okay. We all know about stranger danger. Don't talk to strangers. But oftentimes we would find that kids have been taught not to talk to strangers, and so they were terrified of the cast members as well. It made it a little harder to help them. So if you're a parent of young kids getting ready to go on vacation, tell your kids they can talk to the people with name tags, please. But yeah, it was rare that we would have somebody that we'd actually have to take to Lost and Found or guest services. And honestly, Jody, you probably got gypped just a little bit by getting found there so quickly by your mom, because oftentimes if a child is taken there and they end up there for more than a few minutes, well, that's when the toys and the plushes and the t-shirts and other stuff start to pop up. Because you want to keep the kid happy. You don't want a poor crying, terrified child. So it's awesome that you found your parents, but you might have wished you waited like 5 more minutes. But no, we were always happy to be able to take care of the kids that way. That was a wonderful part of being able to work there. Another really touching story here from somebody who calls themselves Taco Bell Fanboy. He says, "My father worked at Geauga Lake during the late 80s up until 1985. Throughout this time, he saw a family around the park every few weeks, consisting of a little girl, her mother, and father. She was tall enough to ride most of the rides, but when she went one day in 92, he helped her get over her fear of roller coasters after he convinced her to go on the Big Dipper, which was an old and tame Woody in the park, and one I didn't get to ride the one time I was there. Anyway, she enjoyed it so much that when he was taking a break, the whole family went up to him and thanked him. He continued to see the family at the ride every few weeks, and they talked and enjoyed each other's company, and they would occasionally buy my father lunch. One day in 1995, the family walked in without the little girl. As it turned out, she was just diagnosed with a terminal disease, and her condition rapidly worsened. He went to see her in the hospital, and soon after this, She unfortunately passed away. My father and the little girl's family are still friends, and we occasionally see them for dinner near the old park sometimes. We even went together with their 5-year-old son to Wildwater Kingdom in 2016 to see the park one last time. It's a shame that the park that was once filled with these stories is now gone, but we have them to keep the ones we have. I'm grateful I got to get to Geauga Lake when it was Six Flags Worlds of Adventure. Yes, it wasn't the original, but it still had a lot of that. And yes, I miss getting to ride Big Dipper. I got Raging Wolf Bob's, but if I could have traded, I would have. The neat thing is when you work at a park for a while is you do establish relationships with some of the regulars. At Disney, it was harder because there were so many. I mean, when you've got 60 to 70,000 cast members, and then on any given day, the small park has 15 to 20,000 people, and usually it was 2 to 3 times that. It would make it difficult to form those kind of relationships. There were just too many people. Silver Dollar City was smaller though, and because of it, we were able to do that a lot more often. And I had a number of regulars on the train that we got to know, and there's actually still some that every now and then I'll pass them in town or something like that, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's one of the neat things, but yes, then when you see a story like this, oh my goodness, that's crushing too. It's awesome to be able to be a part of somebody's life that way in a way that you wouldn't get to do. In fact, the story actually reminds me of Mitch Albom's 5 People You Meet in Heaven, which is about a guy who worked in an amusement park, kind of like this. Neat story. If you've never read the book, go read the book. I got a written letter here, too, that I want to share. And then I've got one more after this that I received. This is really nice from Robert Rothenberg. And I hope I said that right. He writes, "My wife and I were having a fall trip to Disney World in 2017. On October 1st, our wedding anniversary, so I was planning a bunch of surprises for her. The big one was a day at Discovery Cove. We swam with sharks, dolphins, and the Sea Venture Tour underwater. My wife and I are both diabetic, and in the early summer of 2017, I had gone for a regular checkup. I had a small hole in my right foot the size of a pea. The doctor advised me not to get my foot wet on my upcoming trip at all. I bought everything I could to prevent my foot from getting wet. I was only in the resort pool once, and it didn't get wet. My wife also got antibiotics before we left in case of a problem. So our day at Discovery Cove came. We were having a great time, but after one of our adventures, I noticed that there was a pool of water in my waterproof sneaker bag. We dried my foot off the best we could and continued on our trip. I completely stayed after the water after that day. With 3 or 4 days left on our trip, we were both at Epcot, and I had excruciating pain in my right foot. We left Epcot for the day, went back to the old Key West resort where my wife took my shoes and socks off, and around my hole was red and had drainage. Pain subsided enough so we can finish our trip. Many great memories. Day after that, we landed in Philadelphia, and I went to my doctor's, who immediately took me to the hospital. After 9 days in the hospital, I had to have my right foot amputated. The last 3 weeks of my life at the time were some incredible highs and incredible lows. We went from eating all that delicious food at Disney, and who would have thought a week later, hospital food, which was nasty. But I still work 40 hours a week and continue to be a positive person, and hoping the world can get back to normal so we can go back to Disney in October of 2021. And sent a couple pictures, which I shared during the story. Neat story. Disney and the theme parks have just this amazing effect on people. I have seen people that were terribly sick have miraculous days where they felt great at the parks. And then a lot of times, especially when we would see Make-A-Wish kids and their families and things like that, we would see families come in that you knew were sick and struggling. And for some, I know at least a couple I know were their last trips. And to have a role in being able to try to give some positive memories, some wonderful reminiscing, some good last moments. It was one of those that you were blessed and hurt at the same time. Definitely remember a lot of those moments and touching them. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope you get back. I hope you do. I hope a lot of us get back. I hope the parks get back. I have one other story here, which was sent to me in an email along with some pictures, and just a really neat story. I have been given permission to share the pictures. Just some really neat moments here about how the theme parks can impact somebody, not just once, but multiple times over the course of their lives. Jeff writes, Cast members like you are what kept us coming back and will bring us back again as soon as the pandemic is over. I had a few things that you made me think of. My daughter's first trip to Walt Disney World was when she was 18 months old. She found the stuffed Donald, like you mentioned, helped make that kid's day. She's taken this Donald with her everywhere in the park since the day she got him. Oh my goodness, she's cute. Plush animals were amazing. For my kids, my son had these little rubber VeggieTale dolls that went everywhere with him. And yes, they went to Six Flags Magic Mountain as well. I know adults that carry their plushies into the parks. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's neat, just the role that one animal that you can tie into and snuggle with. We did our gender reveal for our little Abigail with the help of a PhotoPass photographer. Oh, that's cool. That's just cool. When I worked there, gender reveals were not a thing. Nobody did them. You never heard of it. But the proposals and some other things we got to do, and I loved those moments when we got to shoot that. That just made your day when you got a special moment like that. That was just so cool. It didn't happen as often as you might think it did, but it happened often enough that it... Man, if you had something like that happen and you got to shoot it, you were half strutting around the rest of the day. Yeah, look what I got to do. It was just cool. And then, of course, there's the traditional family shot. Now, every time we go back, there is always a friendly photographer that helps us relive this moment at the same location. That's neat to be able to go back and get that retake every time, that repeated picture, and watch the kids grow and everything. I hope on your next trip there's PhotoPass photographers. Goodness, it's such a mess right now. I know if you go this year after December 5th, there's only going to be a couple around. Prayerfully, things can get back to normal and they can rehire and rebuild it again. But I don't know what their plans are at this point. Take a photographer with you, because Disney may not be taking them. Lastly, he also writes, on one of our earlier trips, Abigail had too much popcorn. And anybody who's had a little one like this can understand, yeah, it didn't quite turn into a good moment there with a little one. I had her cleaned up, but no pants. And a cast member overheard me talking to my wife and marched me right up to Sir Mickey's and handed me a pair of new shorts for her. It was the sweetest thing and one that really saved our day. That was one of the greatest parts, is when you could see a need and you could fill it. Disney was wonderful about, the fancy word is empowering, but giving its cast members the ability and authority that if you saw a need, that you could go get it and take care of it. Maybe it was a spilled drink. Okay, I'll get you another drink. Or spilled popcorn or ice cream. Let me get you another one. That was the most common. But man, you see that kid crying and just having a hard time. Hey, you know what? I can get you a balloon. I can do that. Or in the case like this, I had a couple times at Disney where we had kids that had bad accidents and clothes weren't available. And it was an amazing thing to be able to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. Your day's not ruined. You don't have to go back to the hotel. We got you covered. Let me walk you into the store. Let me talk to the cast member there. Find something you like. Let's get you something to wear. Let's get you some new clothing. And you're going to be good to go. In 15 to 30 minutes, you've got them out the door and happy as a lark and with new clothes and taken care of. We did it with shoes. I would watch kids walking along in their flip-flops and watch the flip-flop break. You know what? I can take care of that. That was an amazing thing as a cast member to be able to save the day. And I love the chances to do it. So did you have a time when the cast member saved your day and did something great for you? I'd love to hear it. Share it in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and be sure to check out the description. There's a ton of information there. Thank you as well to my supporters on both YouTube members and Patreon. Their financial support means the world to me, and I try to do as much for them as I can too. If you want to know more about the perks and stuff, check out the description. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless. And he writes, in the back, and yeah, I missed the, blah, blah. We swam, blah, blah, yeah. My wife also got antibiotics before we left in... She found the stuffed Donald, like you mentioned. Oh my goodness. Now, every time we go back, there's always a friendly photographer that helps us... If you'd like to know about my merchandise, contact information, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of my videos, hit that button right there to subscribe. And if you want to see another one, well, I've got a great video for you right here. If you'd like to be like these wonderful people here too and support me financially on Patreon or YouTube, well, hit that little button right there. It'll even give you behind the scenes access and more perks. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless.